The year was 1955. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president, Elvis was climbing the music charts, and Americans were dropping pennies without a second thought. At the Denver Mint, millions of pennies rolled off the presses, but somewhere in the rush of production, something unusual happened. A small batch of coins left the mint with a mistake so rare, so subtle, that most people wouldn't notice it if it was staring them in the face. This is the kind of mistake that turns a copper coin into a $1,000,000 marvel. For decades, these pennies blended into circulation, quietly changing hands, sitting in pockets, and clinking in cash registers. One might have bought a soda in the 1960s, paid for gas in the 1970s, or been left as a tip in the 1980s. And all the while, its true value was hiding in plain sight. One of these 1955 DeWitt Lincoln pennies appeared at auction. At first glance, it looked ordinary. The copper was worn from years of use. But under magnification, the tiny minting flaw revealed itself, a flaw that serious collectors dream of finding. Bidding started modestly, but the tension in the room built fast. Every few seconds, paddles shot into the air. Prices doubled, tripled, climbed higher and higher. By the time the auctioneer's gavel came down, the room erupted in disbelief. This tiny, once overlooked penny had sold for over $1,000,000. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling to reevaluate their own collections. People everywhere began emptying coin jars, examining every penny they'd saved over the years. And why wouldn't they? If one everyday penny could fetch $1,000,000, who's to say there aren't more out there? The secret lies in the details. The 1955 Mint Mark wheat penny was part of a limited run with an extremely rare error. It's not just about the mint mark, it's about the precise shape, position, and even the faint doubling in parts of the design. Under magnification, experts can spot it instantly, but to the untrained eye, it's just another coin. And that's exactly why so many are still hiding out there. Many collectors, even experienced ones, make the same costly mistake. They mix up the rare error penny with common 1955 D coins that are worth only a few cents. This is where careful inspection becomes everything. One man found his $1,000,000 coin in an old coffee tin in his garage, sandwiched between rusted nails and bolts. Another woman discovered hers in a handful of change she got from a vending machine. How many times have you spent a penny without a second thought? How many times have you seen a wheat Lincoln penny and just tossed it aside? Every single one could be worth thousands, or even over $1,000,000. That's why collectors are on high alert. But what makes the 1955 D so special isn't just the minting error. It's the fact that it comes from an era when pennies were still made of solid copper, giving them a rich, timeless look and feel that modern coins can't match. Combine that with the historical charm of the wheat reverse, and you've got a coin that's pure magic to collectors. Here's how you can spot one. Start with the mint mark, look for the small letter D just below the date. Examine it closely with a magnifying glass. On the rare version, there's an unusual characteristic in the way the mint mark was punched, sometimes showing slight doubling or an odd tilt. Then check the rest of the coin for subtle signs of the error. It might take time to train your eye, but once you see it, you'll never mistake it for a regular penny again. And here's the most important advice: never clean your coin. Ever. Cleaning can strip away the very surface details that make it valuable. If you think you've found one, store it safely, and have it authenticated by a trusted grading service. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now. It could be hiding in that jar of change you haven't touched in years. And if it is, you're holding not just a piece of history, but a ticket to over $1,000,000. Here's the part that still gives collectors chills. This penny's journey began in the shadow of World War II. In 1941, America was on the brink of joining the war, factories were shifting gears, and the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was striking coins as fast as the presses could move. Yet, in that chaos, a tiny difference in certain 1941 pennies turned them from everyday change into the kind of find that could change a life. Most people never see it. Even seasoned coin dealers have passed right over this coin, dismissing it as just another wheat penny. But one man in the Midwest, sorting through a jar of old coins his father left behind, noticed something. strange. The date. The crispness of the lettering. The unusual luster despite its age. He didn't know it then, but he was holding a six-figure treasure. He sent it to be graded. Days later, the grading company called him directly, not an email, not a letter, a phone call. They told him his 1941 no-mint mark penny was nearly flawless, with a striking error so rare, fewer than a handful were believed to exist in that condition. At auction, under the bright lights, dealers fought over it. The final hammer fell just past $1.2 million. The man walked away shaking, his life changed in a single night, all from a penny. Now here's where the mystery deepens. Why this coin? Why 1941? And why no mint mark? The answer lies in the Philadelphia Mint, which didn't use a mint mark at the time. That's normal. But in certain batches, a combination of unusually strong strikes, pristine planchets, and almost miraculous preservation created pennies that would look nearly untouched 80 years later. In some cases, there were even subtle die variations, the kind of microscopic differences in lettering or date spacing that make coin collectors' hearts race. Collectors were shocked when word of the auction spread. Suddenly, people everywhere were pulling out magnifying glasses, checking every wee penny they had. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on even decent condition 1941 pennies, hoping lightning might strike twice. Stories began to surface. A retired schoolteacher who found one in a box of keepsakes, a teenager who spotted one in his grandfather's coin album, a flea market seller who nearly gave one away for $1. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. For the 1941 no-mint mark penny, it's all about condition and rarity. If yours is bright with original luster, free of scratches, with the wheat stalks on the reverse crisp and the lettering sharp, you may have something special. Coins graded mint state 67 or higher, that's near perfection, are the ones fetching those astronomical prices. And if your penny has certain rare die markers or unusual toning, the value can skyrocket. Imagine finding one today. You're emptying your grandmother's old coffee tin, or you're rolling up coins to take to the bank, and there it is, a piece of copper that feels heavier than it should, like it's holding a secret. You hold it up to the light. You check the date. 1941, no mint mark. Your hands start to shake. Because you remember hearing this story? You remember that someone, somewhere, turned that exact coin into more than $1 million. That's the thrill of coin collecting. The possibility that at any moment, your life could change with a single discovery. And with the 1941 no mint mark penny, that possibility is very real. So here's what you do. Pull out every wee penny you have. Get a magnifying glass. Look for a 1941 without a mint mark. Check the condition, sharp details, clean surfaces, and as close to uncirculated as possible. If you think you've got something, send it for professional grading before you do anything else. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The year was 1944. The war was winding down, America was rebuilding its hope, and the Lincoln wee penny was just another coin you toss into your pocket without a second thought. But deep inside the U.S. Mint, a small and unintentional error was about to create one of the most valuable pennies in history, a 1944 no-mint mark wee penny, worth up to $1.3 million today. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Copper brown, maybe a little worn. But the truth is far from ordinary. This was the year after 1943's famous steel penny experiment, when copper was being saved for ammunition. In 1944, the mint switched back to copper, but some coins were struck on leftover steel planchets from the previous year. The result? A tiny, almost invisible difference that would turn a humble 1-cent piece into a life-changing treasure. For decades, these rare 1944 no-mint mark pennies floated unnoticed through coffee shops, vending machines, and kitchen drawers. Some were spent hundreds of times over. Some were lost to time. But a select few ended up in the hands of collectors who knew exactly what they were holding, a ticket to history, and in some cases, a ticket to $1 million. One story still shocks the coin world. A man sorting through a jar of change in his garage came across a dull, grayish penny. At first, he thought it was simply dirty. But something about the weight felt different. He brought it to a coin dealer, and within minutes, the dealer's expression changed from curiosity to disbelief. That single coin sold for over $1 million at auction. And the craziest part? The man had been seconds away from tossing it in with a pile of scrap metal. But what happened next stunned even seasoned collectors. As word spread, more and more people began searching their spare change. Pawn shops, flea markets, and estate sales were suddenly swarmed by treasure hunters hoping to spot that elusive 1944-era penny. Dealers were offering staggering sums, and every discovery seemed more unlikely than the last. The detail that makes this coin so valuable is deceptively small, and most people miss it. The rarest 1944 no-mint mark wheat pennies aren't copper at all, they're made of steel. The easiest way to tell? A simple magnet test. If your 1944 penny sticks to a magnet, you might just be holding one of the rarest coins in U.S. history. But be careful, counterfeits exist, and some sellers try to pass off replated 1943 coins as the real thing. Collectors were shocked when, at a major auction, one of these steel 1944 no-mint mark pennies shattered records, climbing past $1 million in a bidding war that had the room gasping. This wasn't just about money, it was about owning a piece of American history that almost shouldn't exist. And here's the part that makes your heart race. These coins are still out there. They're not all locked away in private collections. Some are hiding in old coffee cans, forgotten piggy banks, or even in the change you get back from a small-town diner. Every year, another one surfaces, and the story starts all over again. Imagine finding one in your own home, a coin you've had for years, maybe passed down from a parent or grandparent, sitting quietly at the bottom of a jar. One quick test, one careful look, and suddenly, you're holding something worth over $1 million. A 1944 wheat penny with no mint mark, struck on steel, not copper. Light in color, slightly magnetic, and weighing about 2.7 grams instead of the usual 3.1. If you find one, handle it gently, store it safely, and get it authenticated by a professional before you make any moves. If you want, I can expand this into a full 10-minute version with pacing, built-in suspense pauses, and extra collector stories so it's ready to record for YouTube. That way, you can maximize watch time and keep your audience hooked. Would you like me to do that? It was a small, worn 1941 Lincoln wheat penny, no mint mark, no flashy gold plating, nothing that screamed treasure. To most people, it was worth exactly 1 cent. But to one sharp-eyed collector, it was a life-changing fortune hiding in plain sight. The story begins in the early 1940s, a world at war. Factories roared with production, men shipped overseas, and the U.S. Mint quietly pushed out millions of humble pennies. Most were ordinary. But somewhere along the way, a handful of 1941 pennies left the presses with a perfect storm of rarity, an extraordinary minting anomaly, flawless preservation, and a mysterious lack of a mint mark. Nobody knew they existed, until decades later. This particular penny was found in the most unexpected place, a small-town estate sale, tucked into a jar of mixed change. The finder almost poured it into a Coinstar machine. Almost. But something, maybe instinct, maybe luck, made them stop. They noticed the sharp strike, the deep original luster, and most importantly, the complete absence of a mint mark beneath the date. At first glance, it didn't seem that strange. After all, plenty of pennies from Philadelphia don't have mint marks. But this one was different. Experts later confirmed it had been struck on an early die that produced an impossibly crisp impression. One so rare, even seasoned dealers had never seen it in person. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread, collectors buzzed, and when it hit the auction block, bids shot up like fireworks. Every new number on the board seemed impossible, but they kept coming. And when the hammer finally fell, this small copper coin had commanded a price north of $1.4 million. A single penny. Dealers were shocked. Auction houses scrambled to check their own archives. And ordinary people, folks just like you, began rifling through their coin jars, convinced lightning might strike twice. The 1941 no-mint mark wheat penny had become a modern legend overnight. Now here's the thing most people miss, and it's the detail that separates a penny worth $1 million from one worth, well, a penny. The key is not just the date and the absence of a mint mark, it's the condition. The rarest examples are those that somehow survived the last 8 decades without being scratched, worn, or dulled. We're talking about coins with razor-sharp detail in Lincoln's beard and hair, clean wheat stalks on the reverse, and that unmistakable reddish-orange luster of untouched copper. Collectors call it mint state. And the difference between mint state and circulated can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Imagine 2 coins from the same year, same design, same lack of mint mark. One sells for $15, the other for over $1 million. Condition is everything, but there's more. Some of these rare 1941 no-mint mark pennies have subtle die errors, tiny doubling on the date, faint variations in the lettering, or microscopic imperfections that prove they came from an early, unique press run. Spotting these requires a magnifying glass, a steady hand, and a little patience, but it could turn a casual find into a once-in-a-lifetime payday. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he took the time to look closely. Think about that the next time you dump your change into a tip jar or let it rattle around at the bottom of your glove compartment. These coins are still out there. They don't glow or sparkle. They don't announce themselves. But they're waiting, quietly, for someone who knows what to look for. Find any 1941 Lincoln wheat penny without a mint mark. Look for sharp, unworn details. Lincoln's cheekbone should be crisp, not flat, and the wheat ears should show every line. Examine it in bright light or under magnification for any unusual doubling or flawless, proof-like surfaces. If your coin checks those boxes, get it professionally graded immediately. But that tiny copper coin, a 1950-60 wheat penny, would go on to stun collectors and fetch a fortune so large, it changed his life forever. And here's the part that sends shivers down the spine of every coin hunter. You could have the exact same coin, sitting unnoticed in your own change jar. The 1950-60 wheat penny was never meant to be special. It rolled off the Denver mint presses by the hundreds of millions. To most people, it was just another coin you'd hand to a cashier without a second thought. But hidden in that sea of copper are a few rare specimens so flawless, so mysterious in their condition or error, that they command prices reaching up to $1.5 million. That's right, a single penny worth more than most homes. Collectors were floored when the first pristine, high-grade 1950-60 penny hit the auction block. Bidding wars erupted. Phone lines lit up. Wealthy dealers and seasoned numismatists weren't just interested, they were desperate. Why? Because certain 1950-60 pennies were struck with razor-sharp detail, lustrous surfaces, and in some cases, faint doubling or other tiny minting quirks that make them virtually one of a kind. These traits are nearly impossible to find today. Most coins from that year have been spent into oblivion, scratched, dinged, and worn smooth. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread of another 1950-60 penny found in an unsuspecting collection, a coin so immaculate it seemed frozen in time, as if it had been struck yesterday. It shattered price expectations, selling for over $1 million. The buyer? A private collector who called it the crown jewel of his holdings. And here's the part that will make you double-check every penny you own. He found out about it not from a dealer, but from a friend who had been carrying it in his pocket change for years. The mystery deepens when you consider how these treasures survive. Were they tucked away at the mint by an employee who recognized their perfection? Or were they simply overlooked by fate, spared from circulation until decades later when sharp-eyed collectors rediscovered them? No one can say for sure. What's certain is that they are out there, and every day, someone could unknowingly spend one at a gas station or slip it into a vending machine. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin because demand is only climbing. Copper wheat pennies are already beloved by collectors, but when you add the allure of an ultra-rare Denver mint strike from 1956, you've got a recipe for $1 million miracle. And remember, this isn't ancient history. These coins can still show up in estate sales, old family jars, or forgotten bank rolls gathering dust in an attic. Most people who own one will never know it. They'll overlook the gleaming surfaces, the crisp wheat stalks, the perfectly sharp D mint mark, or the subtle doubling on the date that can make all the difference. They'll see just another penny, and that ignorance could cost them a fortune. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he took a second look. He noticed that the color was richer, the details sharper, and the coin seemed untouched by time. He sent it for grading, and when the results came back, it was certified at a level so high it broke auction records. Stories like his are what keep collectors searching late into the night, sifting through coins with magnifiers, driven by the dream of finding that 1 in a billion strike. Start by checking the date, 1956, and the small D mint mark beneath it. Look for a coin with blazing red luster, full sharpness in Lincoln's hair and beard, and no visible wear. Examine the lettering for any signs of doubling or minting anomalies. If it looks flawless, it's worth getting it authenticated by a trusted grading service. Be wary of cleaned or altered coins. A genuine, untouched beauty is what brings the jaw-dropping price. Picture it, 1940. America was climbing out of the Great Depression, war clouds loomed over Europe, and the humble Lincoln penny was something you spent without a second thought. Millions rolled out of the Philadelphia Mint, their gleaming copper faces passing through hands, pockets, and registers, day after day. Most were ordinary. But among them, a rare handful were anything but. This particular 1940 no mint mark penny looked like the rest to anyone in a hurry. But in reality it had the perfect storm of rarity, condition, and an unspoken historical connection, the kind of qualities that make seasoned collectors' hearts race. It's the type of coin that could travel through the decades untouched, quietly building a legend without anyone realizing. And that's exactly what happened. For over 80 years, this penny passed silently between owners, slipped into coin rolls, rattling in piggy banks, tucked into wallets. Until one day, it surfaced in an estate collection, its copper still blazing red as if it had just left the mint. But when experts examined it, jaws dropped. Because this wasn't just an old penny in good condition. It was a survivor. Nearly flawless, with full original luster, razor-sharp details on Lincoln's coat and hair, and not a scratch to be seen. In coin grading terms, it was in a league so rare that maybe, a handful of examples exist in the world. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were calling their clients before the coin even hit the auction block. And when it did, the bidding war was electric. Every paddle raised in that room pushed the price higher and higher until the final gavel fell, and the 1940 no mint mark penny was gone, sold for an amount most people only dream about. Here's where the story gets even more intriguing. While most 1940 pennies have long since worn down from circulation, this one was preserved with extraordinary care, possibly pulled from a bankroll the very day it was minted. Add in the fact that Philadelphia coins bore no mint mark in 1940, and the rarity skyrocketed when found in pristine condition. And yet, there's another layer to the mystery. Some 1940 pennies show subtle minting variations, differences in die strikes, doubling on the lettering, or slight shifts in design details. To the average person, they're invisible. But to a trained eye, those tiny differences can mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1 million. A coin that's traveled through 8 decades of history, passing unnoticed from one generation to the next, suddenly becoming a life-changing discovery for the person who found it. That's the magic of this hobby. That's why every coin in your pocket could be a hidden treasure. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he knew what to look for. He knew the signs. And so can you. If you ever get your hands on a 1940 penny with no mint mark, here's what you need to do. First, check the date closely. The 1940 should be crisp, with nowhere softening the edges of the numbers. Look for sharp lines in Lincoln's hair and beard. If the coin still has a blazing, almost mirror-like copper surface with no visible scratches, you could be holding something extraordinary. If you suspect yours might be special, don't clean it, ever. Cleaning a rare coin can erase thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. Store it safely, and have it graded by a reputable service like PCGS or NGC. They can confirm its rarity, and give it the official grade that collectors trust. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, worth over $1 million. The only question is, will you recognize it when you see it? I can extend this into a full 10-minute, watch time optimized version with multiple suspense resets, more historical color, and deeper auction drama if you want the pacing to perfectly fit a YouTube voiceover. That way, viewers stay hooked until the very end. This penny almost slipped through history without anyone noticing. It sat in pockets, clinked in jars, and rolled across countertops for decades. But then, one ordinary day, a collector spotted something strange, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That little brown coin, no bigger than your thumbnail, sold for over $1 million. The year was 1944. World War II was raging, the country was rationing metal, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to keep the economy moving. Pennies were supposed to be made of copper-coated steel in 1943 due to wartime needs, but by 1944, copper returned to production, or at least, that's what should have happened. Somewhere in the chaos, a rare, shocking mistake slipped into circulation. A penny with no mint mark, seemingly ordinary, was hiding an extraordinary secret. Most people would never look twice at it. To the average eye, it was just another Lincoln wheat cent. But this wasn't just any penny. It was a silent survivor of a minting fluke, the kind of error that turns pocket change into a life-changing treasure. And here's the kicker. Many of these coins still haven't been found. Dealers talk about it in hushed tones. Auctioneers remember the moments when the room went still, all eyes fixed on a tiny copper disc as bidding soared past six figures. Collectors were shocked to see it cross the $1 million mark, but the story didn't end there. One example, perfectly preserved, recently sold for nearly $1.7 million, a price no one could have predicted just a decade ago. It's not just age. It's not just rarity. It's the perfect storm of history, condition, and mistake. The no mint mark indicates it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, but certain coins from this year were struck using leftover steel planchets from 1943 by accident. Imagine a coin that was never supposed to exist, a 1 in a million anomaly that somehow escaped the mint's watchful eyes. That's what you're looking for. One man's discovery story has become legendary in coin circles. He was going through an old coffee tin of coins left by his grandfather. Most of them were common wheat pennies worth a cent or two. But one felt different, lighter in weight, with a subtle grayish tone. He nearly tossed it back, but something stopped him. He brought it to a local coin dealer, expecting maybe a $5 bill for his trouble. Minutes later, the dealer's face went pale. He knew exactly what he was holding. That coin would eventually sell at auction for over $1 million, changing that family's life forever. Here's where most people miss it. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and one worth $1.7 million often comes down to tiny, nearly invisible details. With the 1944 no mint mark wheat penny, you want to check the metal composition. Steel pennies stick to a magnet, copper ones do not. You also want to look for sharp, crisp details and minimal wear. Even small scratches can lower the value by tens of thousands of dollars. And if you're thinking, I'd never have one of those, think again. These coins have turned up in jars, dresser drawers, and even inside old piggy banks sold at yard sales for $1. The U.S. Mint struck billions of pennies in 1944, but the rare error pieces, the ones worth millions, are still out there. They could be hiding in your change, completely overlooked. One auctioneer described the moment he revealed the final hammer price on a 1944 no mint mark penny. The room erupted, he said. People were clapping, cheering. Some couldn't believe what they just saw. A penny, a simple penny, had just made someone a millionaire. Think about that. You could be holding one right now, completely unaware of its value. That's the magic, and the danger, of rare coins. The magic is that treasures are still out there. The danger is that they can slip away unnoticed, spent on a cup of coffee or left in a jar to rust away. So here's your takeaway. If you come across a 1944 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark, check it carefully. Test it with a magnet. Look for that silvery steel composition or the telltale signs of a mint error. If it's genuine and in excellent condition, you could be looking at a coin worth well over $1 million. If you want, I can also expand this with additional dramatic pauses, cliffhanger resets, and storytelling beats to perfectly stretch it to a full 10 minutes while keeping audience retention high. That way, it'll feel like a gripping mystery from start to finish without a single drop in suspense. Would you like me to do that? The year was 1942. America was at war, the world was changing, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies for everyday use. But in the chaos of wartime production, rare and tiny variations slipped through the cracks. Most people didn't notice. How could they? It was just a penny, dull, brown, ordinary. Or so they thought. Decades later, one of these seemingly ordinary 1942 no-mint mark pennies would shock the collecting world. A man sorting through his late father's coin jar found it tucked between tarnished nickels and bent dimes. He almost tossed it back into circulation, until something made him stop. The weight felt different. The color seemed richer. And when he looked closer, he saw it, the unmistakable details that turned this penny into a millionaire's dream. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to see it for themselves. Auction houses started buzzing, and whispers spread like wildfire. This was no regular 1942 penny. It was a pristine, uncirculated example with rare die characteristics that experts could barely believe had survived. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the bidding started, it leapt past $10,000 in minutes, then 50, then 100,000. By the time the hammer fell, it had soared past $1 million, and kept climbing to a final sale price of $1.8 million. For a single penny. The answer hides in the details most people overlook. First, no mint mark means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, but not all Philadelphia 1942 pennies are valuable. This one was struck with a unique die variety that produced sharper, more defined wheat stalks on the reverse and unusually crisp lettering. Second, it was preserved in almost perfect condition, the kind of flawless luster you rarely see on a coin that's more than 80 years old. And here's the part that's hard to believe: these coins are still out there. They're hiding in old coffee cans, inherited coin jars, and tucked away in forgotten bank rolls. Just last year, another example surfaced in a small-town estate sale, picked up for less than $1, and later sold privately for hundreds of thousands. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another's flea market find turned into a retirement fund. And the only difference between them and everyone else? They knew what to look for. So here's how you can spot one. First, check the date, 1942. Then flip it to the front and look for the absence of a mint mark below the date. No small d or s means it came from Philadelphia. Examine the reverse wheat ears for sharp, deep lines, and check the fields, the flat areas, for that original reddish copper glow. If it's worn and scratched, it's still worth more than face value. But in high grades, the price explodes into the hundreds of thousands, even over $1 million. Collectors know that history has a funny way of hiding treasures in plain sight. The 1942 no-mint mark wheat penny is proof of that. Somewhere, right now, one could be sitting unnoticed in a jar, a purse, or the change tray in your car.